Welcome to the Digital Business Leader Level Up. This is a virtual lunch and learn podcast series with Majesty AliNICOLE WOW, and that is me and the awesome King Rob Deptford. And we're back with another segment here in this series so that we can help digital business leaders level up for sure. And so, King Rob, glad to be back with you.
Yeah, these are fun. They're short, they're easily consumable, I hope,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
hopefully providing some value for people. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Food for thought and easily digestible, right?
yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, palatable here. Yeah, for sure. So, of course, we don't ever have a planned set agenda in terms of something that we are going to just teach about. We set this up as a disclaimer. We just allow kind of what comes up in the moment to be what we use as a trigger mechanic and jump off from there because we know that we will provide value for you for sure. And so, King Rob, you ready?
I'm ready to go. What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's the thing. What are we talking about? Well, since this is all about digital business level up as it relates to leaders, and it's interesting because on our last segment, we sort of ended with talking about the importance of leaders being in the digital space. And I think it would be good to also address to individuals who are using the digital space for business, that understanding that they're influencers and they are leading, even if they don't view themselves as a leader in the traditional sense. Your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. If you're in a leadership position, I think uh, so-called thought leadership, right? We,
Hmm.
we we hear that maybe it's a bit of a buzzword these days, but it is. I think it just comes with the territory. And if you are not establishing yourself as a thought leader in the digital space, it takes away from your brand.
Hmm.
And I think as part of, if you're building a business and you want to maintain that trust that you've built over the years, if you have a well-established business,
Hmm.
it's a non-negotiable. You have to have that digital presence and that thought leadership in the space to show that you are worthy of continuing to have business, especially as generations turn over and
Yeah,
your newer clientele will be much younger and much more prominent in the digital space.
right.
If they can't find you there, you're going to be in trouble.
I love what you just stated in terms of the worthiness. It reminds me even of a work that I have that I put out. It feels like eons ago, but it's about, newsworthiness as a brand and staying relevant and being able to make the shifts, with the eras and everything that's evolving, right? Because you have to stay abreast.
You have to stay abreast. And, long gone are the days of VHS tapes and records and
Right.
televisions. I mean, all the things that we're familiar with, newspapers, right?
Mhm.
I know some leaders who are in positions where they still get the newspaper on the desk if they can get a newspaper in their local market
Right, right, right.
every day. Um, and these are old habits, right? And old habits die hard. And nothing against newspapers. I come from journalism and I happen to like newspapers, but they're a dying medium, and you've got to
Right.
move into the new space. What's coming next? And that again
Absolutely.
is a non-negotiable.
It absolutely is a non-negotiable. And I know some may be thinking we're preaching to the choir here because primarily those who are suited for this particular podcast series are those who are digital business leaders. But here's the thing, even though you are in the digital space and you are positioning yourself continuously as an authority, you do have to continue to level up. So what King Rob stated was so on point, is that just like how newspapers and different things sort of become obsolete, you have to also understand even what in the digital space sometimes then becomes that way too, and be able to continue when things evolve, things level up. And that's why continuing to educate yourself and to keep enhancing and enriching yourself is key, right, King Rob?
It has to be. It has to be. And, you know, in the old days, a lot of leaders would get asked to contribute opinion columns and things to the papers.
Hmm.
And that still does happen. You still see some interesting
Yes.
columns in some of the papers that are left around the world. But, you know, in the last year, there were 40 million new podcast listeners.
Right.
And so you have to look at how that transition is happening and think to yourself,
Hmm.
gee, you know, the newspapers are dying. Where are people going? Well, gee, it sure looks like podcasting might be a good idea, or
Absolutely.
YouTube or something else, right? Wherever your audience is going to.
Absolutely. And being able to even evolve in those spaces too, because
Yeah.
it's a continual level up. So let's do this. Let's talk about um business leaders really building up their newsworthiness. So we're kind of talking about it anyway, but kind of just dial it down into a focus. Is business leaders starting to position themselves as newsworthy so that people will continue to want to tune in? And so when you think about news is all about press, right? And fresh and relevant, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
with our backgrounds in journalism, and and I was in news broadcasting too. Actually, my first intern I was a newscaster for my first intern. And so it's really important that you continue to have something that is fresh and relevant. So let's talk about setting up kind of your DIY media press kit, if you will, in terms of a media presence. What do you think about that? That we could share some value around that in a few short minutes. What's your thoughts around that, King Rob?
Well, I think if you're a business leader, you're automatically in the business of expertise. You're
Hmm.
seen as, if you're in that leadership position, you must be an expert of some kind.
Hmm.
And showing that expertise through some kind of media presence. If you've got a media kit, that's terrific. You know, that's something that is just a must-have.
Yes.
And if an opportunity arises, I mean, we're always looking at what's going on in the world on a day-to-day basis, and that is what comprises a daily newscast. Um,
Exactly.
if an opportunity arises where your expertise is required, that might be an opportunity for you to have some additional exposure.
I agree wholeheartedly. And being able to use the social media, the digital space, really as the press kit. So, of course, individuals can have a traditional press kit if they choose to. Even some of that is outdated too. But yeah, but the way that those are leveraged, but they can use social media. So, you talked about podcasting and different platforms, and so individuals looking at where are they broadcasting themselves and where is the news consistent, and not necessarily every single day, so to speak, but where are they more frequent, and how do they set that up? If someone visits your podcast platform, can they see you as an authority to say, I would love for this individual to come and speak? I would love to hire this individual. When you're on LinkedIn, is your presence on LinkedIn, is it newsworthy? Is it brand worthy? Are you positioned where people actually want to tune into you? And so if you think of being a press kit, that the media is your press kit. We talked in a previous segment about looking at social media as being digital real estate, and you can interchange this in various ways. So when you look at the media as this is my press kit, if no one offered or asked me to send my press kit over, can my media presence already demonstrate my press kit? So what do I need to look like on LinkedIn, on Medium, or whatever platform you're on? How do you set up a presence that invites individuals to say, yes, I want to know more, not just more to tune in, but how can I also have you join me in something that I'm doing? Your thoughts around that, King Rob?
Yeah, I think, and that takes time, right? It takes
Yeah.
time to become known as an expert in a certain field, but you have to start someplace. So I think you have to be constantly investing in that, and I think you can also be a little bit proactive, right? If
Yes.
you think about traditional corporate communications, you know,
Yes.
the old press release. Well, instead of sending out a press release
Hmm.
talking about all the great things that your company is doing, send out a press release when something else happens in the world outside of your company and you've got
Absolutely.
expertise to offer. Something happened someplace, and guess what? Our leader of our organization has expertise on this and would be happy to contribute a comment to your your television news story or whatever it might be.
Perfect. Mhm.
So there are ways to leverage these things.
Absolutely.
It
And
does
that's
take
all
an
press.
investment.
You're absolutely right. And that is all press, because even if someone visits the website, as you mentioned, of a company or so, then if that's listed on there in their media section, then that's exuding that. But on platforms like whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, just, the different platforms, again, having a presence where it is evoking actually from individuals to want something more than just to keep tuning in. They actually want to bring individuals to, yeah, be engaging with them on their platforms, or like you said, contributing. And whether it is being a part of a podcast or being a part of a column, or however, you just want to set yourself up in the digital space to be that walking kind of press kit, but not like overly obvious, so to speak. Is subtle yet significant. It's really more of a how can I say, it's more of a vibration, so to speak, King Rob. It's just that it's an inviting presence that people would want to engage in that way. Your thoughts?
Well, once you get your first crack at it, and if you do a good job, then it keeps happening. You end up on repeat. And
It's
I
right.
think of I think of, as an example, I think of there's an economist that works for a big bank here in my area who
Hmm.
years ago now was interviewed on something happening in the economy. I mean, we've had economic turmoil for years, it seems,
Hmm.
but because he had the expertise, he
Hmm.
came on and he wasn't talking about anything about the bank he works for, but he
Right.
was talking about what's affecting society more broadly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
because of that, and because of his economic expertise, he keeps getting invited back to talk about economic subjects. So that's the
Hmm.
key, right? If once you get
Absolutely.
started, get in and share your expertise, and you can get that exposure.
Absolutely. And it gives you the opportunity to be diverse in your expertise and your sharing, where, just as you mentioned, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to be invited to talk specifically about maybe what your main thing is in business or so, but just because there's a presence and there's a way about you that people want to have you talk about something that is important, as you said, in the economy or something else, they want to hear your voice. And so anytime you can then share your voice about whatever it is, it's still part of your personal and professional branding that then can lead back, to something else, that you do in business. So I guess to wrap this lunch and learn food for thought up, so let's give them some takeaways in terms of maybe a strategy to get into something um, that they can put into action, even though everything we've talked about they can put into action. But let's talk about them being intentional, King Rob, and maybe taking a week to really examine their media presence and start to kind of map out how they can enhance their overall presence so it can be more newsworthy. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a good idea, and I think leverage your network and tell people, "Hey, I'm going to take a more active role here in sharing my expertise," and
Mm-hmm.
let people in your network know that, so that they know,
Right.
"Hey, okay, I've got a resource here on whatever your field happens to be," and so they know they can come to you for their needs.
Yes, perfect. And that right there is the perfect note to really end this food for thought virtual lunch and learn on, because that takes the cake right there. That 1 week, put into action, and it may take you longer to get some things established, but of course, just start the implementation process, get into action. So, King Rob, I think we're good. What about you?
Yeah, that was another great chat.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always love having these chats with you and being able to add value to others. So we're going to close out here, and we thank you for being a part of this. And again, take the food for thought and get into action and see what you can come up with. And we know that you're going to make some great results and be newsworthy, for sure. And we look forward to being back with you in another segment. Take care.